I want to talk about ethical trade and the alliance, of course, a new way for global companies to prove that they manufacture products to environmental and also ethical standards. The company has a free smartphone app, we're about to hear all about it, for customers to rectify or verify that the products themselves before purchasing. Lawrence Christoffelsz is Chairman of Ethical Trade Alliance and joins us now. Great to see you. Well?
Great. Yeah, very well. Thanks,
Welcome
Ahron.
to the studio. You've brought a couple of props in.
Yeah.
Explain to us about what your organisation does.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ahron. Well, essentially, the Ethical Trade Alliance is all about transparency, provenance, and making sure that we're helping factories and manufacturers upskill themselves and really improve their ethics, sustainability. And once they do that, they can demonstrate that to potential consumers as well. So they've got the ability we basically, from start to finish, we've got the factory audit process where we actually have third-party independent factory auditors who actually check on their ethics, working conditions, the sustainability practices of the manufacturing organisation, the company itself, who produces the goods, right through supply chain tracking, and then to the end consumer, as you mentioned with the app, we can have a product, any type of product in store that the consumer can actually scan and then see, one, it's been ticked as ethical and sustainable, and two, they can have the full traceability to make sure it's authentic.
What do you think has changed over the past decade or so? Do you think that there's become a growing movement of people who care about the ethical and the social points? You think about what happened when that factory roof collapsed in Bangladesh.
Yep.
And there was the big campaign against Target, of course, that makes and manufactures a lot. What do you think has kind of brought that to the fore?
Sure, I think, Ahron, there's been a groundswell right around the world from consumers. When there was that sweatshop in Bangladesh, the Nike situation as well. And as consumers in the Western world, we've got to take some accountability because we're allowing that to happen. We're making those purchasing decisions. So what's happened is the United Nations have actually put in place a whole range of what they class as guiding principles. And now around the world, in many Western countries, including Australia, countries have signed up to a UN charter which around modern slavery.
It is so interesting, isn't it? Essentially, the Western world has outsourced our social conscience to other countries. So we want the cheap products. We want the t-shirt for $5, for example, but we wouldn't put up with the sorts of environmental issues, social issues, ethical issues if it was happening here in Australia.
Absolutely.
But it seems to be that we look at the product and we go, it's $5, must have been made overseas, don't care. Probably won't last too long, but hey, it's $5. How do you tackle that point of view as well?
I think the adage out of sight, out of mind is the main thing, and what we're trying to do is, with our app and with our technology and the Trade Alliance itself, is to give everyone that awareness and visibility, so that I think people generally want to do the right thing. Especially you look at young consumers more than our age, they're really determined to make sure they've got the right products. They want to support the right brands who are doing the right thing by the planet, the community, social enterprise. So we give them this, now we're able to give them that sort of visibility.
Well, let's talk about it, because quite a few guests have started bringing in bottles of wine for me, which
this one's empty.
Is a sign that, oh great, you brought me in an empty bottle of wine, get out of here. What's the point of the prop?
Okay, so the prop is, let's say you're a Dan Murphy. Now this could be any product, could be a t-shirt, a suit, medicine, anything. So if you've got a product in Dan Murphy, you say, look, I want to check if this
show
wine.
Us the app if you can.
Yeah,
so this is how it looks.
That's the app, and there's actually one of our blockchain partners, UCOT, that's been rebranded as we speak to the Ethical Trade Alliance.
Sure.
But what we've got to do is we've got the ability to, if you're in store, walking through Dan Murphy's or so, and you click on the button, you scan the app, and you can actually see, well, there's a digital shelf talker.
And there's a video of someone talking.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a digital shelf talker marketing
slide. Let's show the camera here. So we have this guy here who's holding the bottle and having a conversation about it, and telling you. So every single product in the world has a video?
No. So we can do that with the factories, but the video is a bit of a teaser and an explainer, what we call a digital shelf talker. But the really cool part is you press the next button and you can see the full traceability, the batch details, manufacturing details of that product.
Amazing.
Even the GPS location when it was last scanned. So from a supply chain perspective, we can actually make sure it's full integrity of supply chain. We know from a consumer's perspective, it's 100% authentic, so it's not a copy of anything, which is really powerful, really important as well. And you as a consumer know, okay, well, I know that this factory, this manufacturer, this brand is doing the right thing.
You talk about alcohol, but what other sort of products do you deal with?
Absolutely everything. It could be, obviously agribusiness, it could be fashion, pharmaceuticals, even things like certifying a factory who provide raw materials into another supply chain. So one of the things that we've done is part of our factory audit, so if I can just show you the second prop, is
so you have this certificate here, just hold that up for us.
Sure. So these certificates, essentially, we've got independent auditors who actually act remotely, so they can audit a factory remotely through blockchain technology and geostamping and so forth. So we can check a factory's credentials, and then we issue, once they passed, obviously, the ethical sustainable standards, then we can issue them a certificate. As a procurement manager, if you work within an organisation that needs to buy input products or raw materials, you can then scan this certificate that they send through, and again, it's digitally verified, digitally encrypted into the blockchain, so that you know that that factory's legit.
And so what's the long-term hope for you here? This is obviously not just designed for, when we think about the whole business plan, the whole point of it, it's essentially to try and get customers to put pressure on companies to become more ethical, right?
Sure. I think there's two driving forces, Aaron, at the moment. So there is a bit of a perfect storm brewing, if you like. So the modern slavery legislation around the world, the countries all over the world in Western markets are really starting to enforce, again including Australia, that certain companies have to have reporting on modern slavery as part of their supply chain. Simultaneously, you've got a major groundswell happening around the world now from the younger consumers, and when we saw it at the mining conference here this week in Melbourne, people are really passionate and concerned about what's happening with the planet and what's happening with the community. So they want to be able to drive that, as you say, the consumer-driven decision making. And from my perspective, why protest? We can actually protest with your wallet. Choose the products that are doing the right thing. Choose the brands that are doing the right thing.
Do you think, though, that there's that element of concern that there are still people who say, well, all I care is my products being cheap?
Look,
I mean, look at the iPhone, for example. All right? Well, we were talking about that in our last conversation with Elio. Remember when it first came out, it was worth about $400, right? Now it's worth $2,200. Apple has had to make a whole bunch of changes to Foxconn, which is where it builds in China and moving to India as well. Are people willing to pay the price of social and ethical, do you think?
Increasingly, yes. I think I used to be a sessional lecturer for ethical sustainable supply chain at RMIT, and we used to do business case studies, and to create an ROI, what we call as a triple bottom line, which you're probably exposed to already, but that consumer buy-in is a real marketing push now as well. So we can create brand difference by having the fact that they are ethical and sustainable businesses, which people are prepared to pay for.
Lawrence, really, really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.